Okay, so I have decided this evening that I want to really put to the test the random roll tables in the D&D 5th edition source books. So what I have begun to do is roll on those to generate adventure stuff, and then I have a book that I'm going to use to generate like an ocean journey, and then a third book that I'm going to use to generate an island destination, and then back to the Dungeon Master's Guide to create a dungeon. I don't know if I'm going to stream this whole process or really elaborate on the whole thing, but I kind of wanted to record this, and this is easier on my old computer than taking up space with a bunch of video files. So if anyone tunes in, hello. Otherwise, I'm just going to mute the mic and chill out to some music. But I guess I will go through the doc first. So these are the books that I'm using for the random rolls. Ghost of Saltmarsh, Mythic Odysseys of Theros, and the Dungeon Master's Guide. And I do have a very simple idea of what this adventure might eventually become. And I've already sort of started this going through the Dungeon Master's Guide, so it gives a whole bunch of options that I just put down by rolling dice, and then um, just writing down what results those tables give me. And I've noticed that even though I'm just rolling really basic stuff, I already have some ideas in my mind. So you can see there are goals for. You can see it gives you different options for different goals depending on where the adventure is taking place and whether or not it's like event based or destination based. And then next, there is a set of roles for relevant NPCs who might be important parts of the adventure. You don't want to have only three non-player characters, but I have noticed in running my games recently that that it's nice to know who the important ones are, because then you can play the less important ones when they have to show up a little more confidently. Because you can kind of judge on the spot whether or not it needs to be someone who knows something. But I like what I came up with for the villain, because it sounds like something that could definitely be on an island. And then these allies, just I love this, just a very young person and a very like wizened person. And finally, a patron, like someone who will supply the party with like money, jobs, um, or like I like to think of the concept of like a party patron more as someone who like has the information they need more so than someone that has like money or jobs that they need necessarily, because I have at least in my games noticed that my players do not give a crap about money. So the way to have someone that they can rely on is by having someone who has reliable information. Next up are like a few more story beats, and these were kind of not really in this order, but I kind of moved them into this order as I rolled them. So there's a table for different framing events, like what's happening around the time that the whole adventure kicks off. There's a table for the introduction, to not to the introduction of the game session, but to this adventure that you're running your players through. And just to clarify here, the first number that I wrote down is the what the die rolled, and the second number is the die. So the 12 right there. I got a 7 on a 12-sided die for that roll. That's 50 on a 100. And then this 21's weird because that has you roll twice. So I rolled twice and I got a 3 plus 5 there. And on this one, I just decided to roll twice. So I got a 2 and a 6. So that's how that's going. there's a table for a side quest, and this ended up being kind of dopey because I rolled to slay a specific monster, and I was like, okay, in the spirit of the thing, let's figure out what that specific monster is using random tables. But what I did was I pulled out Kobold Press Tome of Beasts, which is a great book that I've just heard about constantly, and people talk about it a lot because it's just that good. But I rolled. There's 400 pages in there, so I rolled a D4, and then I rolled D100, and I got 226, which turned out to be a stupidly powerful monster. Next is the villain event, which I didn't look at all of the results of these. I just looked at the one that I rolled. But what I noticed immediately was that this event cannot happen like soon into the adventure. It must happen partway through, because the way that the Dungeon Master's Guide elaborates on the event, it's like very clearly intended to be a moment to show that like the stakes are rising. This is kind of silly throwing this right on stream if I ever end up using this and anyone ever sees it, but whatever. But there's a table for twists, and that's that one, which is kind of cool, and like fits into this kind of into this like story structure at this point. Like, this is a great point for this twist, because if completing the goal of the dungeon secretly helps the villain, then that perfectly sets up this climactic role, or climactic scene of the adventure, where you come across the villain and lieutenants all performing rites that must be stopped at the same time. So like, if the players complete the goal and then the villain swipes it at the very end, they chase them down to the room where the actual final battle happens, something like that. I have no idea if that's necessarily good storytelling, but that's just one gear that instantly started turning there. And then I turned the page and there was a new chapter, and it has a whole set of roll tables for NPCs and villains and stuff. So coming back to the point over here where we have these things, I was talking about it's important to know the important ones so that you know whether or not your players are coming across important NPCs and stuff like that. If it's important to know who these are, then these rolls are going to help flesh that out. So we can get back to there, but I want to do the island and dungeon stuff. So I already have paged into Theros, and I'm gonna start doing that. But I'm just gonna turn some music on and just do that, kind of elaborating my thoughts on the. Sorry, I'm just pulling up iTunes to play some music. I'm probably just going to mute my mic and kind of narrate on screen the thought processes as I have these rolls. So here comes some tunes, and we'll get going. Well, that's pretty loud for me. I can crank that down. All right, let's do this. Okay, I actually think I rolled this a minute ago. Sorry, I had to rearrange where my dice were sitting, but I believe I rolled an 8 on this just a second ago. So that's going to be trace the path. Hero lost at sea. I'm just gonna put my thoughts in like parentheses as we kind of go through each one of these, but I'm not gonna stick on any of them for too long. Okay, so my main thought on this one is that we don't know how long ago the hero was lost at sea. Could be yesterday, could be like weeks, could be like way longer. Yeah, like mythological, how would you say that? As far back. Okay. Cool. So, moving on from that, what we have from Theros are, let's see, there's a table of island environments. That's another D10. There are a lot of D10s so far. Okay, we got 7. 7. Lost ruins. On this island are the last remains of the city destroyed by something. So far this is coming together. Like, this is nothing here is directly conflicting with my basic main idea that I want the adventure to start on land, travel to an island, and then there be a dungeon on that island. So this is perfect. Like, so far this is sounding pretty cool. Like, all those plot beats, even though we haven't fleshed out any of the characters or anything like that, like, now with this sort of context, with this like a hero lost either yesterday or super far back, lost amid an island full of lost ruins, where this holy day might come into play. You know, maybe this holy day is something that exists in the current day that is like based on the events of this city of lost ruins or something like that, right? Like, that's awesome. That's like instantly like Homeric Odyssey sort of thing. That's awesome. I haven't actually used this book yet. I've like skimmed through it and I've wanted to do this, so this is tons of fun so far. I'm gonna keep looking at island options, because there are a couple more. There's a table for inhabitants, which may not work. May not work if the whole island is lost ruins. But other than that, let's go ahead and give it a roll. That's another 10. That's a 4. Rivals. 2 settlements have turned the island into a war zone. Ooh. 2 rivals on an island sounds like one of my first D&D ideas. That's awesome. Okay. that was a 4. 4 out of 10. Rivals 2. Rival settlements are roaring. That may not work. So let's try rolling one more time. And maybe this will flesh out, maybe what can happen here is, since the island is a lost ruin, the inhabitants' rolls tell us who inhabit. That's fucking circular. That's fucking dumb. Okay, since the island is a lost ruin, the inhabitants' rolls tell us who the people of the lost city were. Yeah. Okay, and now we'll do this again. That's a 1. The last creatures that think they're the last of their kind make their home on this island. So like rare creatures in the Delta, these would probably be fairies. But this is interesting because we have these rivals, and maybe they nearly extinguished each other, and there's only one surviving clan. And they actually are the last. So yeah, let's write that down. 1 out of 10, the last. The last of their kind. Perhaps they might have rivals and could survive whatever event destroyed. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we got that. Let's see. There are a couple. There's one more thing I want to pull from this, because the rest of this Theros chapter is like stuff for underwater. Not underwater. Yes, underwater. Okay. Or let's see. Is there anything else I want from this? Oh, yeah, okay. There are the temples of the gods in this book, too. Okay, so there's a lot in this book. There's a lot in this Theros book, actually. But that might be all of what I actually wanted to use. Because the next bit is an adventure that I don't want to steal from. Oh, but there are some cool magic items and some cool monsters. So maybe we'll look at those for the dungeon. But I believe at this point we get to Saltmarsh. And this is what I've been looking forward to. So well, this and the Dungeon Master dungeon creation stuff. So I should actually put this as Theros Island stuff, because there's not a ton of there's not actually a ton of sea stuff. Okay, so first of all, ocean. Environs encounters. I believe this is going to be a 12. Yes, I'm opting not to use all of the options laid out here, and this isn't even technically a table. This isn't even technically a table. This is just a list of things that the book outlines. But I took out the ones I didn't like and kept the ones that I was okay with in, and I ended up with 11. So what I'm going to do is roll a d12 here, and if I roll a 12, I'm going to re-roll. So, first one. Sorry, my dice tray is not laying flat. This might work. Okay, so that's an 11. These dice roll high. I'm using a pretty cool set of pink dice. Yes. Okay. So 1, 2. It is okay. I was just making sure. That was. There are a lot of pages there. Okay, so 11 is pretty cool. Shipwreck. Oops. 11 and more. 9. Shipwreck and. Doing that wrong. I was counting backwards. But I'm gonna keep Shipwreck because that sounds awesome. And we get to go further into each one of these. So Shipwreck and just a sandbar. Okay. Okay, interesting. We'll do the sandbar first, just because that's less interesting than a shipwreck. But it does have its own table. Oh no, it doesn't. It has a DC. Okay, perception 12 to notice. Otherwise, Dex. Dex save. Otherwise, get stuck. Strength check to get unstuck. You know, that's actually kind of cool. Because it's the ship sailing equivalent of a login room, which is a classic travel trope. And sandbars basically let you say, like, yes, you're on the ocean, but here's this classic puzzle anyway. It's just now you're on ships. And speaking of ships, The next one that we rolled is a Shipwreck, which has a D10. What's inside? So, D10. My chair's squeaky. I'm planning to put up an edited thing of this on YouTube at some point. So, if I do that, I'll have a condensed version of this one. That barely rolled. It gave me another 5, and I've decided that 5s are mulligans because I rolled a ton of them at the very beginning. Okay, that's a 2. Holy shit. Okay, 2, 10. There is a young bronze dragon. Careful now. Okay. Cool. There's that. Stand by and we'll get to the next one. Okay, sorry, I had to let that drop play out. So, the next thing that we're going to do are ocean, fully random encounters. And again, we're only going to roll 2 of these because we want. Sorry. So we're going to roll 2 of them because we want this adventure to be fairly tight. We don't want to have, just because we have all these options for all these encounters, doesn't mean that we want to run every single one of them every time we play this adventure. We just want to have plenty of options for someone else reading this. So, I'm going to roll on the water encounters for level 5 to 10, which means this adventure will be for Tier 2, because this is the first table that has forced us to make that decision. So, a Tier 2 adventure about going to an island, about we'll keep it simple at the very top. We'll roll all the stuff we've been working on in later. So a Tier 2 adventure about going to an island and finding a lost civilization and rescuing a dude, a person. sailing. Put sailing in there. More active, might communicate that there are going to be like overwater encounters. Might suggest, might just throw this up here. Might suggest pre-readying a ship map for encounters. Yeah, and we'll just throw that at the top, and then tier 2. We'll put that in like blue, because that's nice. And then we can get back to it. So, ocean, random encounters. These are a D100. It's gonna be 76. And I'm not keeping these dice roll things organized, but that is a 76. Okay, that is a randomly generated ship. This is a whole table. This is a whole set of tables. Which is actually awesome. For generating a ship to bump into. Full-blown caravan style random encounter. Neat. So that means we're going to. Okay, so this is going to be a whole another set of rolls. So it's another. Whoops! Sorry for bumping the mic. It's going to be another D100 roll for the ship type. That's a 100. No, that's a 0-1. I'm freaking bad at D100s. That's a rowboat. A rowboat. Rowboats. Ship type. Sorry. I'm making up this system of hierarchies as I go. So that's a 1 and 100. Rowboats. D24 monuments. 18. Is that a lot for a rowboat? It's like a very long rowboat. 18. Maybe that's... Maybe it's a lot. Okay, ship name. This is definitely going to be something where... yeah, you rolled twice. Okay, so I'm gonna roll 2 different d20s here just for fun and for the for a little bit of superstition of it. So I'm rolling a pink and a blue die. The pink one's gonna be the first word, and the blue one's gonna be the second one. So that's 20 and a 12. 20. The ship's name is the That's a great word for a rowboat. The Zealous Prince. Okay. Quite eager. I'm getting eager energy from that name. I'm also beginning to think I could rearrange my desk again. give me a second. And we'll get back to this ship. Okay, I almost got a fantastic desk lab. The problem is my computer is so stupid. Okay, I got a much smaller thing to roll my dice into, and that's not the sound of it, but maybe the sound of it will come through the mic a little bit better from here too. I think overall I just made a very good adjustment. Okay, so the next thing is that okay, there's going to be a crew captain. And this is just going to be what they're named based on the naming table. So this is going to be another 2d20s. So it's going to be pink and then blue. It's a 1 and then a 15. Salty devil. That's so good. We're gonna go salty old devil. Captain. Yeah, we're gonna go Captain Salty Old Devil. Give me something to do. Okay. Finally, last but not least, ship purpose. This is gonna inform like the 6 synth zones that happen in the ship. No, this is gonna inform like what kind of people the crew are a little bit too. So it's a 57. It's gonna be military. So this is perfect. Like what these names mean at this point in a military complex or context. Is hilarious in the context of the above roles. This is certainly like an over-grizzled veteran, like an old cob, or like a Bo from She-Ra, but old. Okay, so let's flip some pages here, see if there's anything else for the ship. Oh, there's a lot more about the ship. Okay, cool. Let's get this stuff going. Let's go for ship attitude. Dude, imagine if you did this for like 60 ships for like imagine if you were in the world building weeds and you did this for like 60 ships for like one branch of the military or something like that. That would just be like, this is awesome, but this is not a quick process. Like, if you are doing this level of prep about everything in your game, you're over prepping. But I love doing these kind of like focused exercises where you, not that I'm maintaining my focus super well. I am going through this kind of slowly, but like I love doing these exercises where you just actually do go through all of this stuff. Like people say that these books don't have the tools for creating cool adventures and stuff, but they totally do. So, you just have to go through them and realize how much prep is actually important, you know. Okay, so we're rolling a d6 for how friendly this ship is. That's a 5. It's a hostile. It is a hostile ship. Hostile. Captain Saltio Devil is hostile. Okay. Hostile ships. It's a hostile ship with a crew of... That one bounced out. It's a 1. Crew of orcs. Ship crew. Orcs. 100 roll. Orcs. See how this is like all coming together? Maybe Saltio Devil is the wrong name at this point. Maybe it's like Salt Devil. Devil Salt. Yeah. Yeah. And this is called... the Devil's Prince. See, at this point we're editing. At this point we have gone into we have gone from perfectly following these perfectly, like exactly just writing down what is on these tables. Like at this point we are making it our own, you know. Yeah. That is the idea, right? Like you do this just long enough to get one of those little ideas. And now, even though this is a random encounter, like we have some atmosphere going on here. Like if this is what's on the ocean, this gives the players so much like context for the universe you're playing in just with this. I'm not even through. Sorry, I was like reading further. Like I'm not even through doing the ship stuff. This is one random encounter, but because we get so much here, if this is really like what strikes our fancy, we can use this as the seed for everything that comes after this, and then work backwards on the basic setup stuff we did previous to this point, right? And you can always be doing that. Like you can always iterate like forward from where you just got a new idea, and you can always go back. writing these adventures with the level of prep you actually need to run one session, or honestly probably like 3 to 4 to 5. Like doing all this is not like you're never set in stone, and it's not like writing a program where going back and iterating gets harder and harder and harder and harder, because you're literally writing just the scenario. You don't like you're just laying the foundation, I guess, is kind of the idea. And everything else that's like, chances are is that if we had this and we put this in someone else's hands, they might also like immediately go like, oh, Devil's Prince, that sounds that sounds, I don't want devils in my game, right? So they might immediately change this and maybe even this, but keep this because they read Lord of the Rings. And you know, and then at that point it's a tool for anyone who has it in their hands to like make something unique to their own table. I think that was the end of the album I was listening to, and I need to go back to it because there are a couple more bonus tracks. Not that these tracks are great, but I did put them in there because I put a lot of time into them. Okay, anyway, getting back on track. Ship crew. So ships also have a disposition. That's going to be a D10, not a 10s. That's fine. That's another one, but I'm just going to throw down a 7 because I've been rolling a lot of ones, I feel like. 7 is nothing. Okay, let's see what 1 is then. Lol. See, we're doing this also, which means we're not 100% strictly adhering. So diseased. My immediate thought is maybe seek an auxiliary table to elaborate. Otherwise we'll just treat it as no. Disposition. That way it's not that complicated. Because it doesn't really need to be. Okay, that looks like that is it for the ship. So what we do now is we learn our Google Docs shortcuts. No, we go back several pages, and we roll another 100. Yeah, okay, yeah. That's gonna be 29. Giant crabs. Did. Okay. 2d8 giant crabs. Why? Who cares? It's giant crabs. This will be a fun fight pretty much regardless. Let's throw down a sample 2d8. Get an extra d8 out. Okay. We're gonna go with another pink and another blue. Okay, that's a 2 and a 6. So that's an 8. 8 giant crabs. In an average party, that's 2 per person. 2 per player. That's not too bad, right? Note. Look up giant crab stats. Okay. Cool. So that is it for the random encounters. Next. Oh man, I love this stuff. Okay. Next, we get to the Salt Marsh Island stuff for real. This is Salt Marsh sea travel stuff. Next, we get to the island stuff for real. Okay, so, islands. Dimensions. 2d6. Doubling up on a lot of these single dice now. See, if you go in order, then you get all these fun opportunities as a DM to roll dice, like on your own. Even if you're not playing with anyone, you have this chance to like play this game where you, as the game master, get to discover stuff, and that to me is the absolute joy of being a DM, and also just the general openness of these D&D books. Anyway, the dimensions of the islands in this book are for islands of 1d6 by 1d6 miles. So I'm going to roll. I got 1 and 1. It's a very small island, but I'll go ahead and keep it 1 mile square. Perhaps with, okay, so here I'm just going to randomly throw, perhaps with 3 things, like a peninsula, some kind of cut-in shore, and oh, let's go to here's what we can do. See, we're homebrewing now, but I do not want to show. So we're homebrewing now. What we're doing is we're going off screen to a random color generator, and we're just going to get a random color. And we'll press it 3 times. Okay, so it's like a light gray, and sand is a light blue gray. Cool. Next comes habitat, which is informed by the next couple rolls. Oh no, we know our habitat because of Theros, right? Habitat Lost Ruins. See Theros. Hey, it's my theme song. Okay, stand by. Changing the tunes. This is where having multiple of these books comes in handy, right? Because that is left totally open. And it has some basic recommendations, but we can like fully confidently at this point we can like fully confidently fill in that blank with other prep that we did like 15 minutes ago or whatever. How long have I been streaming? Oh, maybe it's closer to 30 minutes ago or something like that. Yeah, I guess I'm going through this kind of slow because I keep getting distracted, but I'm gonna throw on some more music. I'm gonna throw on some freaking old music, and I'm gonna turn it down a little so I get less distracted. And then, we'll just play it. Okay. Okay, cool. This is why multiple books are useful. Island theme. So I'm pretty sure this is one where there's going to be a lot of supplementary stuff for whatever I roll next. So this is a D6. That's a 6. 6 out of 6. Wild. We'll see what that means as we turn the page. Yeah, there are like 3 or 4 tables. It looks like 4 tables per island, right? So we have this Lost Ruins thing, and then we're about to get so much more. There's 4 tables, right? So we're about to get this much more info on the environment that we're building, right? Because we already have this hook. Okay, so Wild Island first is features, which is cool. Features is a D6. I'm gonna start alternating these D6s just for kicks. So here's the blue one with a 3. 3 of 6. Geysers. This is so sick. I don't know about y'all, but I have like a pretty distinct image in my mind forming of this island of lost ruins, with these last people living on it. Okay. Geysers, which shoot light into the sky at night. Isn't that awesome? Like, isn't that immediately cool? It just... that's so atmospheric. That's so immediately, like, iconic. Like, we're in this thing, we're following this hero, we're trying to get something back. We may have to protect a wilderness site from attackers. Maybe these geysers are important or something. There's the Lost Ruins. There's the slaying of a specific monster, which is a giant. So maybe we'll look for like a giant that could be a cool fight for tier 2, something like that. Retracing the hero that's been gone you don't know how long. The Lost Ruins, the rival clans. And then the hostile orcs, which are maybe diseased, right? And the disease doesn't have to come into it necessarily, but like this whole thing. So we have this quest. We have this whole thing telling us like this is a world where we quest to follow in the footsteps of heroes. to get a specific item and slay a specific foe. Maybe we don't we don't know who our foe is yet, right? Because we didn't do the villain rolls. But we have hostile militaristic orcs and giant crabs on our way to this wild island with geysers that shoot out into the sky at night. Like, that's so much. Like, just saying that, you put an amazing picture in your players' heads. Encounters. I'm gonna roll 2 of these just for kicks, just to see. That's a 2 and a 3 and a 20. Brown bears. 1d4 brown bears. Throw a d4. Right? Because we're putting all the tools so that people can see what they need. 2. 1d4. 2. Brown bears. And 1 owl bear. These don't sound like challenges at tier 2. But maybe they are just passing by, and a player with speak with animals can get a hint from them. Yeah. Perhaps even, and this is the point where we're just like fully making shit up, like immediately, almost immediately going off book, right? Like I rolled 2d20, and I'm immediately like filling in these blanks. The book doesn't do that. Your brain will just do that if you do this. It's awesome. Yeah. So here's the idea. And I wanted to record this, but I didn't want it to take up space on my computer, so I figured stream it way low key and then export it to YouTube. So what we're doing is we're using 3 different D&D 5e books to generate an adventure, a set of parameters for like crossing the ocean to an island, what's on the island, and then although I may not get to this because I don't want to be up doing this too late, but the 4th part would be going back to the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is the first book referenced in this first area right here. Later in the book, there is a set of rules for like randomly generating a dungeon. So in theory, like just using these books, I'm trying to see if like just using these rolls and the inspiration that they call forth can generate like a whole adventure, like start to finish, that might take 1 session for an insanely efficient party, but more likely could last like 3 to 4. So here's what I've got so far. There's kind of a bunch of generic sort of motivation stuff at the very top. Some basic details on involved NPCs. A whole bunch of tables for different story beats in like a weird order that I put back in order. And then like there's a whole section of tables for fleshing out NPCs from like fully from scratch, which I'm not going to touch at the moment. The Mythic Odysseys of Theros has a bunch of Greek mythology inspired stuff, so I rolled an adventure goal, a basic like island environment, Lost Ruins, which is going to get elaborated upon later, and some like basic history of what civilization was lost on the Lost Island. Some ocean encounters, one of which is this giant set of tables for creating a ship from scratch. That way, if you're sailing on the ocean and you cross paths with a ship, you have everything you need to know about them to run them as a game master, right? Like this was all just a bunch of random dice rolls I did about 15 minutes ago, and now I just have this, and I said it a minute ago, but like I feel like one of the things you can learn from doing these exercises is that if you were to truly build the most realistic world possible, you'd have to do hundreds of these, which no games have hundreds of these. Nobody's prep has hundreds of these in them, which means that if you are the kind of person who has no idea what to prep, like, you can tone it down, right? Like, point being, like, you don't have to do a freaking ton of prep per session. You can do one of these, and you could get some mileage out of just this, and like flipping one or two of these things to something different just on the spot. That's all you need to have beforehand. This other encounter with giant crabs, and then I had just gotten to actually making the rolls that I was most looking forward to, which is the Ghost of Saltmarsh book, which has all the like neat stuff for what's actually on the island. So we're halfway through that. So we rolled for a feature of the island. So also, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. This is just going to be me talking slowly through this process. But I hope you enjoy. And yeah, so that's one of the other things I was saying, right? Let me roll one more of these things here. But that's one of the things I was saying. Oh, it looks like this was a D20 table split in half. Okay, so let's roll a D10 for the top half of the encounter table just for fun. So I'm gonna roll a D10, and that's gonna give me a number for the high end of a D20 table. Okay, so that's a 6. So 16 on this table is 2d6 giant eagles. Cool. So 2d6 freaking giant eagles, right? And this is random encounter rolls, right? But like part of what we're learning as we go through this stuff is like, if you're taking everything you roll at just face value, well, now you live in a world where your adventure might have these show up, and that should tell you something about the way you run the adventure, right? Like, if I think about I'm gonna go to an island and get in a dungeon and fight a monster and get loot, like if I say that, but then I say, oh, I'm going to go to an island with giant flying eagles, and search over the island for the dungeon, then you have to end your sentence there because, oh my god, this is an island with giant eagles, right? Like, the tone information you get from these rolls is more viable than people give it credit for, I think. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but like, people discount this stuff, and maybe they shouldn't, is kind of what I'm driving at. Okay, cool. So there is one more. Oh, perhaps. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's where I left off here, right? So I rolled, but this is a tier 2 adventure because up here was the first decision we made where we had to decide what level the adventure was going to be, because we had to pick a set of tables to roll on based on what level. And I am running a game where my players are level 8, and it's freaking awesome. It is the most fun I've ever had with this game in level 8. So I picked this table. I picked the random table for levels 5 to 10. And so that has informed us. So what that tells us, right, is that bears, there's regular old bears and owlbears. Those are like level 2, 3, 4, maybe maybe level 5 enemies. So at level 8, these guys aren't going to be anything in terms of a combat encounter. But what this means, right, because you have these in your pocket and you also have these in your pocket, what this means is that if you are running this for a group somewhere between levels 5 and 10, then their options for these enemies are different, right? If they can either just fully kick their ass, or they may have a party with speak with animals. What this means is that now anyone else who gets their hands on this has options, even if their party is diverse. Perhaps the animals. So getting back to this idea that I had just from rolling some brown bears and one owl bear, where my brain was spinning out towards. Kind of scatterbrained, but that's why I have the dock open, right? Perhaps these animals, if invited, will actually just travel willingly back to the mainland with the party on their ship if they have room, right? That's a lot of words for some just some stream of consciousness stuff, right? That's all gonna get edited down. Right? It's more inspiring than people get it credit for. Like, people, someone online literally told me not to get a book because it was just a toolbox for homebrew. I'm like, yeah, having a toolbox for homebrew can be super powerful. But yeah, let's see. Okay, there are some options for underwater areas. These are kind of big options. I'm not going to go through a ton of these. Oh, actually, hang on. One of these is a set of ruins. That's interesting. All right, let's see. There's a lot of story information. Huh. Okay, I think. So one of these things is actually a Lost Ruin set on an island, which would be perfect, but it's kind of like pre-written-y. So I don't know if I'm going to use that. I'm just going to page through real quick and see if there are any tables in the table of contents that I can check out. Grab more stuff from. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is go back to Theros real quick, because I thought I saw something about like one other bit of detail about being about traveling overseas that I wanted to get, and then yeah, and then I think we'll get back to the Dungeon Master's Guide. Okay, I think I found what I was looking for on the Dungeon Master's Guide. Okay. Oh, yeah. Skipped a few pages back. Yes, okay, unusual environments. Yes, okay, here we go. DMG, unusual environment stuff. Because what I want to do next is kind of paint the picture of what's on the island. Like, beyond these geysers, beyond these things, let's flesh it out a little more. So, looking at the Dungeon Master's Guide, environments. Oh, okay. There is another ocean random encounter table. I'm gonna throw on that real quick. That's gonna be a 12 plus an 8 for that one. Looks like 17. An iceberg. Okay. Iceberg. Maybe suggesting... Ugh, gross. Excuse me. Sorry. Maybe suggesting that this adventure is set somewhere polar, or just in the winter. See, we're getting story details from this, right? Like, we're not getting into any of the, like, meat. Oh, this is, what are we listening to? This is my very old music from 2011. This is a battle theme I wrote for a fake game. Yeah. Okay, more unusual environment stuff. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna throw one more on that sea thing. 7. That's a hostile pirate ship. Okay, we already have one of those, so we'll move on. See, there's even some rules about ships, like, right here in the Dungeon Master's Guide, meaning that you don't even necessarily need Salt Marsh for 100% of these details. Like, you could have gotten part of the way towards this with just the Dungeon Master's Guide, rather than having the specific Salt Marsh book for the pirate ship stuff. Let's move on. The sky. Oh, that's it. Okay. That was actually kind of short. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back, because before the sea table rolls that I just rolled, there were also underwater rolls. So I'm going to throw one of those just for kicks. And at this point, like, it's not even like there's any set order, and there hasn't ever been a set order, right? I'm just kind of navigating through all the different tools in the toolbox. Okay, that was a 10 on that roll. That is a patrol of friendly merfolk. So now we have hostile orcs and friendly merfolk in the present adventure, which will take us to an island. I'm sorry, I hate when people narrate like this. But I don't want to talk faster than I type, because otherwise I'll get mixed up. But basically, right, we have, just from our dice rolls, we have, we know that there are hostile orcs out there, and we just rolled a patrol of friendly merfolk. So we have hostile and friendly forces in the area. We have a general picture of, like, the family of monsters to pull from, right? Like, if it's the orcs that are hostile, then I'm going to go to the monster manual when I'm populating the dungeon, and populate it with monsters that make sense fighting alongside orcs. And maybe just like pick out something cool and make the cool thing the villain, regardless of how precisely close it is to being part of like orcs and like the sort of the what Nord Games calls the Savage Horde family of monsters in the game, right? But anyway, so sorry, I'm like going in circles here, but we have the hostile and the friendly populations in the current day, and our adventure is taking us to an island where we will discover the ancient history of a previous civilization where that happened and led to disaster and extinction for those people. So now, not only do we have tons of flavor, but we also have this like emergent idea of like a narrative for the module. So now we have, which will take us to an island which bears the scars of similar sentiments in history. Yes, exactly, right? Like something is coming out here and it's all like fully emergent, right? Because this roll where I rolled the patrol of friendly merfolk, I could have skipped over that completely, or that particular table that I rolled on could have been several just random locations with loot. It could have been a hostile patrol of different creatures completely, leaving us with no friendly folk, meaning that there are hostile orcs and hostile marrow, just for example, which are, I believe, like some sort of fish monster. I have never actually looked up art of a marrow, but right, but like it's all because of this thing that we just randomly decided to do because we put in the time to get to the point where this roll matters. So is there anything else we can throw down? Because what we don't have are places to go. So here we go. Okay, check this out. So Dungeon Master's Guide, right? In places where civilization rules or once ruled, adventurers might find monuments, right? So that is going to be the next thing we do here. I a little bit feel like I'm procrastinating on getting to the point where I actually build out the dungeon, or maybe some NPCs. I initially went into this with the ultimate intent to like kind of get to the point where we're building a dungeon and focusing on those roles and stuff. But this is actually, I'm actually enjoying just fleshing out this island. So I'm just going to keep throwing down stuff from these tables as we go, and then maybe maybe put together like a basic concept for a dungeon without getting into the nitty-gritty of that, because that would be less interesting to stream, because I can't stream my iPad drawing app. Don't know how to do that. May get there. Don't know. Anyway, moving on. So these monuments in the Dungeon Master's Guide. We're gonna throw a monument down on this island, and that's a D20 roll. Just cueing new music. Okay, the monuments is a D20 roll. That kind of rolled backwards because I have a really cheap plastic thing that I'm rolling into at this point. Just make room on the desk. Anyway, that was a 10. Intact statue. Whoa. I do not know what did that to the formatting. That was weird. Okay. Intact statue of a person or deity. Let's roll a high-low on that. Let's roll the other d20. So, high person, low deity. Just for grins, we'll flip it because I kind of want it to roll low. That was up. There we go. 4. Okay, cool. Deity. Okay. As I was rolling that die, I kind of came up against something that I use as like a tool against indecision, generally speaking, in my life. This is way sidetracking, right? But just like generally speaking, I don't have a lot of trouble with indecision because if you do it this way, it gets really easy. If you can put your thoughts into a d6 table and roll a die, like a 6-sided die, on your own thoughts that you can't decide between, I guess, or prioritize maybe is the word, right? Like if you can't figure out what should be most important in your head, if you can't figure out how honest you want to be with a person or anything like that, right? Just like write it down, like write down grades of intensity of this feeling and roll a d6 on it. And what will happen is either you'll agree with the roll or not. And then you start scratching out those options. And then you kind of like, I don't know. Maybe that sounds dopey, but like to me, it's like I know exactly what's happening, but it's tricking my brain into like spotlighting the answer that I want. You know? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, total sidetracking, but I did that there, right? I rolled between two options, and I wanted it to be one of them, and it landed on a 12, but I said it was up on the edge, which I hadn't been paying attention to as of yet, and I misspelled deity twice, is what happened. So, good job. But yeah, there's that, right? So, if it's to a deity, who that will also tell us about this island. I'm gonna roll one more, just for grins. That's a 20. I'm going to, okay. So it says totem pole, but I'm not so sure about using a totem pole, so maybe just a pole. Or like a thick tree trunk, right? We're back to fully homebrewing, fully off the rails, fully what's about to be written down is not in the book right in front of me or anything like that, right? This is just spinning out from totem pole. I don't know about totem pole. A thick tree trunk where with branches where people throw necklaces. Yeah, and that's just a thing there. Nobody takes them. Generations of conflict have occurred, and this tree and its chain adornments. See, we're getting flowery now. We're writing box text. If this is in the D&D book, this is the thing that the new dungeon master is looking at and going, if I read this, I trust in the author that this will be interesting for my players to listen to, right? Okay, branches where people throw necklaces, nobody takes them ever. Generations of conflict have occurred here. And yet, this tree and its chain adornments still stand unscarred by time, flame, or war. That's just some thematic ass language that you can just put in front of anyone and it'll be a great time. Okay, we're gonna roll some weird locales next. You know what? Here, I will put, here is DMG. Here are further details on the island. DMG. Okay. We're gonna roll on some weird locales. Oh yeah, this was a random roll that began as totem pole, and that whole paragraph just like spun forth. Just like it says totem pole, but I don't want to use a totem pole. What else? A pole, tree trunk with necklaces, but nobody touches them. Okay, we have a dead island here with new people living on it, but like generations and generations of necklaces are on this thing. Cool, more flavor, and then just the end of this sentence. I don't know. But now we're looking at weird locales. So this is in the same section of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I was just in for the monuments. Yeah, it's like I like to think of it in two minds, right? Or maybe three. Like one, by writing this down, would I be able to run this? Two, if I were a player, would I think that was cool? Which is, I'm undercritical of stuff like this, I think. I don't know. I consider myself undercritical of the media that I listen to. But I don't necessarily know if that's true for the D&D games I play at the same level. But anyway, so could I run it based on the notes I've written down for myself? As a player... two, as a player, would I like to play it? And three, if I were a DM who hadn't written this, would the information here be enough to communicate to me what I needed to know to, like, spend some time with my people for a few hours, rolling dice and solving puzzles and stuff. Okay, looking at another D20 roll, I'm probably going to roll two of these as well. That's a 13. Okay, this is a pretty funny coincidence. A 13 on this table is a wrecked ship, but the DMG specifies might be nowhere near the water. Again, we ask the question that we asked at the top. The top with our premise about following in the footsteps of a mythological hero. Is it recent or ancient? the implications change. Yeah, I just saw what you wrote. That really came to light for me recently because I ran a one-shot. I had like 10 minutes of prep time, and I had skimmed, it was maybe 30 pages, and I'd skimmed the first 10 like 2 weeks before. But the way that one-shot was laid out, it had everything that I needed in the order that I needed it to play a 5.5-hour game, or maybe closer to just 5, to play a 5-hour game, and like have a full night of like beginning, middle, and end of game time, and like storytelling and action and puzzle solving and stuff like that. So yeah, like thinking about it from the perspective, because that one was really well done, and I've downloaded some cheaper ones that are like cool adventures, but the layout isn't as elegant or accessible, maybe. And like it makes a difference in which ones I want to play more. So coming back to this thing, right? A wrecked ship which may be nowhere near the water. Well, I've kind of decided I want it to be nowhere near the water, so it's somewhere on the island, but the island is really small, which I might change. I might just re-roll one of the d6s, because right now it's only 1 mile square, which seems a little bit small to explore. But you know, again, maybe not. Maybe I'm underestimating how like how much stuff you could cram on an island of that size. Anyway, yeah, if it's recent or if it's ancient, right, these two options drastically change the implications of the rest of the adventure. So what that means is that this module is now even more modular, because if I'm a GM who's looking for something to fill in space, and I have a hero an important person that recently disappeared, I can now look at this and go, this is an option for me. So, we're gonna roll another one of these. That's a 16. 16 is a, let's see. A river ferry guided by a ghostly captain. I don't know if that fits in as well, but what I'm gonna do is put it over here, put it down here, and say, actually, maybe this is an encounter inside the dungeon. And I'm just gonna make that a big red note so that whenever I come back to this, I will know to check that out. Okay, so we're gonna roll one more, and at this point we're just gonna roll until there's something that would fit on the island a little better. That's an 8. Let's see. Ooh, nice. Okay, this is thematic. A battlefield where the rolling fog seems to look like, what does it say? A war reenactment. And that's what's in the book. And then immediately going into homebrew again, remember the hostile orcs and friendly merfolk. Do they see these foggy ghosts? Foggy battles? Think about whether they know that. So again, writing it from the perspective of like, if I were a DM who picked this up, could I run it? And also just like, what did I like about the one I did run, right? This is another one where it's like, it's not telling me. And honestly, this is probably sort of a case of like we haven't gotten to what the villain is actually there for or not yet. But I feel like we can kind of build this forward. Anyway, yeah. So do the hostile orcs, like if the players come across this, can these two sets of folks that we've set up, can they also see it? And if so, like if the players are in with one of these guys, like for example, if they captured one of the orcs, or if they went to like the merfolk, like if they followed the patrol back to their base to get supplies or something, right? Because if they're friendly, they'd probably share supplies on a small island, maybe, and stuff. So there are like opportunities at this point to think about, like here is where you start going into, oh, like maybe let's build an NPC, right? We have a basic idea for our orc captain. Maybe we go to the NPC table and get like 2 of these dudes and 2 of these dudes, and maybe like a captain for them. That way those tools have been taken from the toolbox and combined forward to make yet further more advanced tools. Additionally, also, these ghosts should like 100% indicate the style of civilization of the people of the Lost Ruin. So like chances are, because the Lost Ruin, like at the heart of the Lost Ruin is probably going to be where the dungeon is, these like battles in the mist are going to be the player's first sense of what is to come. Let's see. There's a weather table. Let's throw down a weather, just for fun, because this is fun. D&D prep is a good time. Average weather. Nice. I'm glad. Okay. Weather. Okay. There are 3 tables here. They're kind of condensed, but they do call for d20s, so I need 3 d20s now. So we're going to go pink, blue, green for temperature, wind, and precipitation. I'm gonna roll these on my desk. Okay, we got an 8. An 8, that's a double. I'm gonna re-roll that. There we go. Is that another 8? No. Okay. So we got an 8 for temperature. That is normal for the season. AKA cold, right? Because we rolled something else before that was cold. Yeah, because there's potential to bang into an iceberg. All the books said about icebergs were that they're very easy to avoid if you see them in time, and they're easy to see. So average weather, temperature is normal for the season, aka cold. See above. Wind is a 12, which is none. Interesting. None at all. Roll high, low. I'm gonna say if roll high, still wins are supernatural. total homebrew, totally not from the book. I just want it to be more interesting than none. So I'm gonna roll a d20. All right, no, I'll leave that blank. Roll high, low. As an example, roll low. Example roll low. Okay, so that's fine. That's less interesting for me, as the person like going through this exercise, right? I tell my players this in my Curse of Strahd game, but like, well, hell, what was I saying? That would be interesting. Thankfully, it is just a d20 though. Okay, so I did this thing just to throw out the option, and the example roll was low. That is less interesting for me, but what that means is someone having to run this module doesn't have to prep for that. And then also, like, I, as the person going through this exercise, am kind of discovering this thing. It's like, thank you. So there's the point I was getting around to, right? Is like, because I'm doing all this prep work, I'll never be able to play it as if I was completely fresh. But like, doing this prep work step by step means that as I do this, I experience a sense of discovery that's like pretty satisfying, even though I'm not the one rolling perception checks and casting spells and stuff like that. I still have this kind of like ever evolving sense of discovery from the DM's side of things. And yes, and so in playing Curse of Strahd, which is a pre-written campaign, it's like a 300-page book. No way am I going to read 300 pages before starting the campaign, but the way it's laid out makes it very easy for me as the DM to plan ahead and kind of know, generally speaking, which direction the players are going. So I only prep the parts of it where I know where they're going. And what that means is that I'm able to like run a pretty elaborate game with once again getting to like discover it as they go, right? That's where I was getting to, like getting to discover it as the players go, because I haven't read the whole book. I kind of read just ahead of them, kind of what's going to happen next, and it's not exactly like this process, but it is a similar sort of level of satisfaction of like, if I read it in time with them playing it, rather than consuming it all at once, then I get that like experience of kind of step-by-step discovery of like what's around the next corner. You know, if I know the beginning of the adventure from levels 1 to 3 front to back, then I get to discover all the stuff that happens 4 to 10 as my players are 4 to 10. So that is where the strengths, that is yet another one of the strengths of doing something like this. Yet another one of the, in my opinion, one of the draws of being a DM and like doing the prep work and stuff like that, is like, just because you prep it ahead of the players doesn't mean you don't get to play it. You know, this is a game. This is an experience of epic discovery, right? Because like at least for me, it's impossible to do stuff like this without like without having a visceral experience of like, I'm here, I'm existing in this as it's happening. Anyway, let's roll for precipitation. Precipitation. That's a 19. That should be high. Heavy rain or heavy snow? Probably snow. At this point, I'm picturing a lost ruins of a city of ashes. And perhaps there's a point where the snow turns gray. Ooh, atmosphere. Even as it is falling down heavily. Ooh, atmosphere. Okay, what else? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like there are 6 options here for wilderness. This is just going to be a D6 roll. 5. Third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Slippery ice. More and more cold season rolls. Woo. Okay, I'm gonna roll one more. I'm gonna roll a D4 because I like the ones that are under 5. That's a 4. Okay. Razorvine. That's cool. That's a Pokemon move. A plant that grows thick and annoying. Tangly. Thorns deal damage to those who cross through. These are Dex, Acro, or Fall Prone. Okay, yeah, exactly. The PS1 fog of war surrounds you. Okay. So now I could do settlements, but I think we have enough on the island. I think I don't think it needs to be populated, I guess. Like, we have the 2 tribes or whatever, but I don't think the island needs to have a ton of fleshed out, what's the word? A ton of fleshed out, like, bases, right? Oh, some really bad old music coming up. That's fine. I'll just let it keep rolling. Notes. Go back and do villains and NPCs later. For now, skip settlements. Let the island be mostly natural. Slash wild. Then now do dungeon. Okay, we're just gonna keep doing these table exercises. I do kind of want to get offline soon, but we're just gonna keep doing these table exercises for the like beginning, some of the tone setting and like purpose determining of the actual dungeon on the island. So, and now for the actual dungeon. Concepts. Okay, so we are here in Appendix A of the freaking Dungeon Master's Guide. There's like one other section of the DMG, which I will pull up as I'm explaining this. I think there's one other section of the DMG that explains like doors and some purposes for different chambers and stuff like that. But other than that, you basically have you have this appendix on page 290 of a 316 page book, or thereabouts, for planning dungeons. And there's like so much good stuff in here, but it is so far back. And in my opinion, this stuff should have been at the very front of the book. This game is called Dungeons and Dragons. For the Dungeon Master Guide, give me all the stuff to make a dungeon. When I first started playing this game, I was very confused when I opened up this book, and when I really got into the game and started looking up like history of previous editions of the game and stuff. In first edition Dungeons and Dragons, one of the first things it tells a dungeon master to do is make 6 floors of a dungeon, and like the whole game is going to be different people who say they want to play the game. You run them through your dungeon, and like before the game begins, do 6 floors, right? And then it immediately hopped into like, here's the first step of populating a dungeon. Here is like how to like link tunnels and stuff like that. Here are tables for the sorts of loot, small little bits of details and stuff like that. And like so much of that stuff is still here, but it's shunted to the back, and that's just a horribly bad decision. But ever since I found it, because I stayed away from this book for a long time, because the stuff at the beginning of this book is very dense and very like D&D in universe specific. So if you're in it for like homebrewing, then it's hard to access. But there's so much good stuff back here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna page through real quick and figure out how many there are different types of dungeons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 kinds of dungeons listed here, so what I'm going to do is roll a 10-sided die and re-roll if I get a 10. That's a 10. That's a 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a mine. Okay, so now we roll... get back to the outline. Dungeon type, mine, purpose. So the purpose of the mine is a 20-sided die table below the dungeon type, and you roll this, and this like forms some context here. Remembering that we already have the context of following the footsteps of a hero, friendly and enemy tribes going towards extinction, this weird tree, and it's like snowy winter, all that context. And then additionally we rolled an 11, So that feels a little bit boring, but I'm gonna keep rolling with it. That is a load where metal ore is mined, and there's a 75% chance the mine is depleted. So what I'm gonna do is roll a d100 and see if I roll 75 or under. That is a 29. The mine is depleted. Depleted load of metal ore. Throw in another high-low for if it was magic? Question mark? If high magic. And I'll just throw a d20. That's a nat 1. Example roll. Nat 1. Super not magic. Okay, so the place is not the reason for the story. This like frozen mine in the middle of this lost ruin. Oh, you know what? Let's see if there's a ruin. Let's see if there's a ruin dungeon type. That would have been a better idea. Okay. We're gonna go back on this. There are more interesting tables here than metal that's out. Right? Like, as long as you have a reason to show up there, it's like such a cool thing, right? Like, no one's gonna sit there and go like, oh, we're traveling through this like snowy island and we passed by that statue of the god no one knows, but maybe I saw in a textbook one time, and now we're in this dead city, and now there's an abandoned mine operation, the one place in the whole city that hasn't been boarded up? Question mark. I mean, that's a little easy, right? But like, it's fun, man. It's just fun. It's fun to think about. Before even playing D&D, I would constantly try to rope people I knew into doing just like round-robin storytelling. And this is basically like that, except it's you and this, what Matt Colville on YouTube and also Twitch, he calls that oracular, as in like of the oracles, right? Like you're kind of asking questions and getting responses through this like organic process that's like real satisfying, you know? So I think for like thematic purposes, I'm going to roll on the tomb table, which is also a little bit stereotypical, but more interesting to me than the mine. Stand by. Okay. So the tomb, a couple of these tables are actually D100, but it's like spread out. I guess they just want to have more options than a D20 without writing 100 options for everyone. But the tomb is a D20 roll, so we'll throw down again, and that came to a 7. I was worried that was another 1, but let's see, 7, a crypt. This is coming together. These rolls are starting to tell a story, even though I kind of shifted it in favor of the stuff already. But that's homebrewing. Like at the point where we're not following it directly by the exact text, that's homebrewing. That is creating your own thing. But check this out. This roll I got is a crypt for less important burials. That could be the whole island, if you think about it. That's just awesome. That's just fun. Oh, well, fun from a storytelling perspective. I don't know. It's fun. It's fun to discover. Let's roll dungeon dressings just for kicks, and this will be another like kind of like doing that roll for that whole ship, and it's like it'd be insane to do 60 of these. You can do one good one and have plenty of material for a session, and then also the more you do it, the more you get used to the process, the more it becomes like a quicker thing. But right now we're just going to throw down a whole bunch of dungeon like senses and sights and stuff like that. We're touching on what actually touches the senses, which as a narrative note, because we haven't had anything like that since we got to this point, right? What that means is that in session, for the players hearing about what's here, the experience is going to change as we roll things like common noises heard. That's a 100-sided roll. That is a 78. Shuffling. Everything's just going to be in bold in this section. Shuffling of feet of something else. The senses get filled in as we roll air quality, which is a D100 roll. A lot of these do not have a full 100 options on them, though. They're kind of ranges. That's another 29. I've been rolling a lot of 29s with this D100. Let's see. Air clear and humid. Fine with me. That's Texas. As we roll odors, smelled here. We'll roll 2 of these just for grands. Odors D100. 16. Dank or moldy. And 30. That's the same one. Let's reroll. 24. Also the same one, I think. The beginning of this table is heavily tilted towards dank and moldy. There we go. There's a 68. That's a higher one. Putrid. Putrid. I kind of hate what that word evokes. So maybe we'll just change it. But we'll leave it there for now. As we roll some general sights. Scene. We'll roll like 3 of these in quick succession. We have a 49. Dust. Easy. We have a 54. Very close. Didn't spend much. 54. That one is Batguano. Batguano. Don't want to roll that in. Don't feel like describing that. Cobwebs. And watch the last one be dirt. The last one that I don't hate. 46. More dust. Okay. A lot of dust. Like double the expected amount of dust. And that's just something you can say to your players, and they'll be like, like one time maybe, if they're in good spirits. So that's just fun. 67. That's close to what I just rolled a second ago, isn't it? Mold. Okay. So this place is dusty, but moldy. Okay. Kind of makes sense. It's old. Next, we are going to roll for furnishings and appointments. This is going to be like filling in the scene a little better than dust and cobwebs. Let's see, 42. Fireplace with wood stacked nearby. That's a 09. That's a bench. Okay. This is like a capital N normal set of rolls. That's a 02. I'm gonna re-roll that. There we go. 47. Grindstone. Like for sharpening axes? Perhaps this is a hostile orc. An ancient ground of the hostile orcs. Instead of the friendlies you might expect to be there. I don't know. That doesn't feel super strong. Religious articles. We'll roll a few out of here. 67. Another 67. Robes. 47. A lot of sevens, I guess. Just general sevens. Incense burner. I think that's called a censer. And a 61. Pews. Okay, so this comes back to what we rolled at the very beginning about maybe having a holy day. And that does kind of tie in for like a tomb, like if it's a tomb where burial sites were blessed or something. Cool. Keeping it cohesive, not having to re-roll. Mage furnishings. I have no idea what these rolls are going to look like, but this might be a thing where you only pick one of these to dress up the dungeon with. 88. A vial of what? Randomly decide. 29. Another 29. Chalk for circles written on stones. Perhaps the players saw a chalk drawing in the city on their way in. Way in. Oh yeah. Now we're laying breadcrumbs. Because I, as the DM, have just discovered this, but also the players have just discovered this. I did a weird thing in the song that's playing in the background, and I thought it was clever, and every time I hear it, I regret it. Here we go. Because if they saw a chalk drawing on the city on their way in, now, if this is a place of the hostile orcs, then now we're getting hints that maybe the hostile orcs are the ones who are actually the survivors. Maybe there's an orc drawing magic circles in the dead city on this island that the players don't see until they get into the tomb and see more of his stuff or their stuff sitting inside the dungeon, right? Which means if we bring this back around, you know, put these notes at the top where someone running it would need them ahead of time. Now we're laying breadcrumbs. We're laying out the trail for what the party will discover over the course of time, and that's from a random ass item roll. And that's not even item number 3, because I'm rolling 3 items in every area. It's 85. That's gonna be a set of alchemical nonsense squiggly glass pipes. That's not what the book says. What the book says is piping tubes. But it's gonna be this. If I see mage supplies and piping and tubes, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a crazy straw with bubbling colored liquid steaming up over a Bunsen burner. All of that. Okay. Utensils and personal items. This is going to tell us about the people who live there. Whether this is current or old is going to tell us a lot. 67. A scroll. Of what? Randomly decide. Perhaps pull from Woodfall. Which, Woodfall is a totally different book I have that is strictly a setting and like a series of ideas. Written for games that play... games that thrive on less specificity, I guess. It's still very specific, and it's a very clearly written book. But its level of detail is more sparse and different from the level of detail in 5e. Anyway, point being, it's kind of mystical and weird, and the art style is great too. Part of the reason I bought the book was just for the art. But anyway, point being, part of the Woodfall book is just finding weird, witchy or mystical stuff. And that's the vibe that I get from just seeing scroll and nothing else. Anyway, check out Woodfall. Good book. Okay. Another D100. That's a 29. Another 29. I'm gonna start re-rolling 29s, man. 55. Parchment. Perhaps a letter? Is it even readable? And 31. A flask or jar. Perhaps a collection of both with old alcohol that is no longer potent. Okay, we're almost through this stuff, and then I'm pretty much gonna be close to done. There's like one more thing at the back of the Dungeon Master's Guide that I might play with tonight, but yeah. So next we are going to container contents. This might inform some of the sense description up above. This is going to be like if players see barrels or crates and try to pry into them, that sort of thing. This is still a D100 roll. I hate reading these things, but it's cool. We got a 67. A paste. Roll high, low. If high, it's flavor, like it's like a vegetable. And if low, it's for scrubbing. You would never need to know this, right? But if you're doing, or you might not ever need to know this, but if you're doing an exercise like this, it's worth like throwing in these extra little options, just to like flesh it out. People say this game gets monotonous, so provide options for altering the path. That's an 80. I don't believe necessarily that this game gets monotonous, but I also have only been playing for like a year-ish of actual D&D. Played a bunch of other tabletop, but not a ton of actual D&D yet. Looks like an 80 is going to be powder. Same roll as above. As the paste roll. And third one's going to be 51. What are 50s? Yeah, okay. That's going to be a thin liquid. Of what kind? Perhaps, thin liquid of what kind? Perhaps it is quicksilver, which on a, like, say, not impossible, but not insanely easy, which on a DC 14 Arcana roll by a spellcaster will show them the face of the hero? The hero? The hero maybe, or someone else, more likely. No. Or maybe the enemy we haven't decided on yet. Okay. Cool. That's that. Roll a con save if, let's see, roll a DC 10 con save if you drink it. Nothing happens on a fail. On a fail, you have to pee. Can I put that on Twitch? If you fail, you have to use the bathroom. Okay. And that's just like some, like, making up for not having put, what the hell am I saying? That's the kind of thing that, I didn't get to play this thing in middle school, but if I had, middle school would have been the time to put that there. So now it's there. Noted. I will make sure never to explain anything about that ever again. But I am going to keep this in here just for fun. The players that I have a good time playing with will, like, at least politely laugh at that, like, huh. And that's it. And that is the only goal of something like that. And as the DM, if I'm picking this up and trying to run this, I can be like, that's stupid, I'm never gonna do that. But me, right now, being the person writing it, it's like, yeah, hell with it, why not? Okay, we got maybe 2 more things. So the next thing is going to be books, scrolls, tomes. This is going to be another set of D100 rolls. That's a 70. A property deed. To what? There's nothing there. Maybe it's literally to a address that has been wiped out. Just continuing to tell the sad story of this island, I guess, of the ancient people of this island. A letter, perhaps. This is current. What if the letter is ancient and the deed is current? Ooh. And 42. Nice. Okay. Oh my god. It gets worse. A last will and testament. Oh my god. Okay. I'm gonna try to roll one more that's not, like, a sheet of paper. It's a 97. That's a very high roll. A travelogue for an exotic land. Additional roll. A travelogue from an exotic land. What is a travelogue? Let's find out what a travelogue is without showing Twitch my Google search history. A travelogue is a book about the places visited and experienced. So it's not a journal per se, but it's very close to a journal. Okay. A travelogue. Because in the DM's guide it says 4 exotic land. Written by who? Perhaps roll them using the NPC roll tables later. Okay. So the last thing, dungeon, yeah, that was all dungeon dressings. So the last thing we're gonna do here is dungeon population. And then I'm gonna call it a night. So, we're looking at the Appendix B, which is after the section I was just using, and it has a bunch of monsters listed based on the environments you would find them in. So I'm thinking, because we already have encounters for Over the Sea, gonna just look at monsters that can be encountered in the dungeon. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with one sort of environment. Oh, right. So maybe we'll put this up here. Maybe the first half of the dungeon is the Dead City. Then the tomb as the second half. This way, what we can do is we can roll an urban encounter, just to be, like, thematically appropriate. Oh, actually, this is all organized by CR, so so rather than roll, we'll just pick some out for the proper CR. So we know it's tier 2. I'm just gonna pick a CR6 or 7. We'll say 7 encounter. Which is an Oni and a Shield Guardian. Maybe... I don't know what 5e Onis look like. Let's see if there's art. Okay, they kind of just look like guys. Okay, so yeah, I can just roll with this. Maybe the Oni is appears to be orcish in nature. Ooh, I hope I'm still streaming. My OBS is being weird. I need to get off in a minute anyway, but maybe the Oni appears to be orcish in nature. The Shield Guardian. Okay, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that. The Shield Guardian is fully subservient to the Oni and perhaps lets slip the name of the mage the party saw signs of in the city. In chalk in the city. And then we'll go with I'm thinking we'll go with Underdark monsters. So that was a CR7 encounter. Even though I have a lot of thoughts about CR, it's a basic measurement of the difficulty of a fight relative to the level of the party that's playing the game. But CR is complicated, and people generally don't think that it's a perfect gauge for encounter difficulty, right? A lot of people think the CR system is broken, and there are several alternatives to measuring encounter difficulty, but here we are using the core rulebooks with the core system of CR, which is short for challenge rating. So we're just finding a sufficient challenge rating. So because I did the CR7 in the first half of the dungeon, we're going to go for CR8 in the second half, which is where they get into the tomb. And the CR8 Underdark encounter is going to be wow, this is cool. Okay, a cloaker, a Fomorian, which if I understand is sort of troll adjacent, but could also be orc adjacent. A mind flayer, an arcanist. Maybe it's the mage. And a spirit naga. Here is where I'm like, I should read more of the Vanilla Monster Manual, because I've read through the Tome of Beasts and I love the art style. It's so bright and kind of sharp, I guess, and I really like it. But I don't know a lot of the details of these monsters. But anyway, point being, look, we have in this random encounter or in this kind of coordinated encounter, the idea of these tables is like, if you're looking for a battle of CR8, you should be able to put these guys in a group, and they'll have some kind of synergy that brings them up to a level where they can work together to challenge a party that's level 8. And from what I understand, this is kind of indicative of like previous editions of D&D, maybe, where in the current edition it's maybe more assumed that every random encounter is going to be like a group of similar people, but like the idea of the idea that is less obvious but seems to be very common with DMs that have been playing since 3rd edition is like you just find some cool enemies that have some synergy, and you put them in a group together just to fight your party, right? So this is not a full population of the second half of the dungeon that I'd be putting together, but this is like one encounter, and maybe what I do from here is like I populate it with some of these guys and some of these guys in squads with these guys, and maybe like a group of 3, and they could be separated, and they could come together and form like units of these if the alarm was raised and stuff like that. So even though this is just listing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 enemies, you can get a lot of mileage out of these like constructed units. I'm gonna get the hell off the internet. It's basically past my bedtime, but I just wanted to go through a bunch of that and kind of I do a lot of talking through my process, and I was like, maybe I should talk through my process and record it. And I think this is a decent. I mean, this is a large font, right? But in a large font, this is eight pages of prep work that was just hanging out for a couple hours. Like, this was not hard. This was like hanging out in my free time, sort of thing. So I guess that's the point. Bringing it back around. Like, don't underestimate random tables and just how much they can spin up your imagination. I literally bought Saltmarsh for those random tables that I just went through. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, hon. Have a good night. I'll probably do this again, although I have no idea exactly when I would. But yep. Oh, that's my whole dang drive. All right. Adios.